Hello, I'm Emma from Speaking at Work, and I want to talk to you today about handling questions. Clients often ask us, but how do I deal with the questions? Well, that's a really good question. How do you deal with questions? Well, number one, you educate your audience. So you tell them at the beginning how you want to deal with questions. So if you're happy for people to ask you questions as you go through, then you tell them. If you want to save them all to the end of the presentation, tell them. At the end of the presentation, we've got 15 minutes. So if you've got a question, please write it down. We might answer it later on in the presentation, but let's make sure we do address those questions, but we'll deal with them at the end. You educate your audience as to when you want to deal with questions, but be prepared for them not to listen as well. The second thing, prepare for questions. Expect there to be questions. If you were sitting in the audience, what might you ask? How would you question this data? How would you question this approach? What might be your concerns about these ideas? Really try to brainstorm, and if you can't think of those kind of questions, go to somebody who you think might have a differing view of your presentation or your ideas. Really try to think about those difficult questions and come up with some answers before the moment. The third thing that's really important is that we need to acknowledge the questions when they've been asked. It also gives us a little bit of thinking time when we acknowledge that question. So responses like, that's a really good question, or you know what, this is a very complex idea and it can be difficult to get your head around first, those kinds of things. Thank you so much, that's a brilliant question. And finally, what do you do if you don't know the answer? My advice would always be truthful. You know what? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know someone that does, and I will come back to you with some ideas by the end of tomorrow. Be really clear about how you're going to deal with the fact that you can't answer that particular question, and make sure you follow up in the way that you said you would. Take care. Speak to you soon.